Sup, BookTube? I know this lighting might be a little crappy, but I wanted to do a little tag video today. And that tag is one that I think made the rounds like a couple months ago. And it is the Snob-O-Meter tag, aka book snob tag. And this tag was created by that reading guy, and I've seen it. I missed all of these videos somehow. I must have been asleep for a couple weeks, but I have since gone back and looked at a couple videos from like Steve Donahue and what was Philip Chase and no. So I since have gone back and watched some of these videos, so I'll link them in the description. But as am I a self-proclaimed snob? I did publish a video once where I called myself a snob in the title of the video. So that may be a red flag, a self-profession of snobbery. That may be an indicator that I could be a snob, but that's not something that I ever really have thought deeply about before. The title of the video is a one-off, just for some engagement, perhaps. So yeah, I'm gonna go through these 12 questions. I'm gonna try to go a little quickly because it's getting late and I have to wake up early for work. So I'm gonna rip through these questions, and I haven't really looked at them, so I'm kind of going off the cuff here. I want to try to articulate better in the heat of the moment instead of preparing notes, which I often do because I cannot speak words from the brain to the mouth very well. So, trying to... All right. Question number 1. What is your definition of book snobbery? Well, that is something that could go many different ways, and I could alter it based on how I would like to appear. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go with the general kind of boring answer. I think it is, 1, a condescension towards others who you deem as lesser readers. 2, an inward or outward conceit of your idea of yourself and what you read. And 3, just an all-around bookish know-it-all prick who sucks to be around. That doesn't apply to everybody. I know I gave 3 different definitions that are all a little bit different. But the important thing I think about snobbery is that you think that you're better because you do something or someone else doesn't do something, or they do the wrong thing. And it's all about perception and what you think and perhaps what you say and how you act. Because I don't think it matters whether it's inward or outward. Snobbery is snobbery. And nobody has to know if you're a snob, but you could be a snob. And so could I. But with that out of the way, I know it's not a Oxford, Cambridge definition, but I don't care. Going to question 2. Is there a genre or type of book you would never consider reading? Such as, would you ever read a romance? Or if you regularly read romance, would you ever try a science fiction novel? Okay. This is an interesting one, I think, because I am a proclaimed omnivorous reader in that I really enjoy lots of genres, pretty much every genre. I've got a 20 plus genre tier list video that I've made, and that is a lot of genres. So I have that drive to spread my gaze onto most things. Now, romance here is specifically mentioned as a genre. I have never read a romance book. I've not read one. But would I read one ever? Well, of course, sure, I might read one ever. The real crux of the matter here is that as of right now, I have a full-time job that does not include reading books. I go to work and I don't read books when I'm at work because I'm working. So, like people with full-time jobs, that means that the rest of my time when I'm not sleeping, possibly a third of the day, if I'm not eating or exercising or whatever, is book time. And I still devote a lot of my free time to book time, but I don't have enough free time right now for romance books. I don't want to devote any time. Am I against reading a romance book? No, I'm not against it. I am against reading a 21st century romance book, I'll tell you that, with the cartoon covers. No, I hate that. But perhaps a 20th century romance book, something a little spicy from the 1950s, if they had spice back then. Sure. One day. Maybe on a slow weekend. Other genres that I would not read ever. I read a lot of nonfiction, so I'm trying to think there. Definitely organic chemistry and biochemistry. I don't think I would. I hate. Architecture. I can't see myself reading that, but I don't know why I would rule out architecture. That just seems like it would be lost on me. It would be a wasteful read, and who wants to waste a read? So I'm open to consideration for all of these. It's good to be open. You shouldn't be closed-minded in many things that you do. So sure, I'll read everything. All right. Question number 3. Does erotica count as literature? I am assuming erotica is a smut book. Is it a smut book? Erotic literature, is that smut? I assume it's smut. I have not read any smut, but, well, I have read, oh my gosh, I have read Lord of Dark Places by Hal Bennett. Oh my gosh. I still curse the man who recommended that to me. That was a vile read. No hate towards him, obviously. I don't hate him. It was just oh boy, that's quite a novel. There were some sex scenes in that, and they were deeply disturbing. And I never finished the book. But that could be erotica. Some twisted, dark form of erotica that I never want to see again. That's not answering the question, though. Does erotica count as literature? Well, there should be a sub-question there. What is the definition of literature? Now, I just thinking right now, I would say literature is anything written that tells a story. It could be a sentence, or it could be a freaking Don Quixote novel, whatever. Fictional writing, I think, is literature. So if erotica is fictional, then it's literature. Now, is it a trashy genre? Probably, but there's lots of trashy books, especially nowadays. They're coming out. They're in Barnes & Noble, and they're literature. So why not let the smut people have a win? They could use some wins, I think. 4. Is it better to read classic books than popular bestsellers? Yes, of course it's better to read classic books than popular bestsellers. It's better. I said it. It's better. it what is better mean? I don't know. But it's better. The reason I say it's better is because popular bestsellers are books that have not stood any test of time. They are based on trend or fad, and fad is gross. Fad is stinky. Now, it could be that a book has caught a fad or a trend, and it's a good book. That's fine. But I find more often than not that fad is the product of perhaps an advertising scheme or some sort of message that somebody wants to get across, and a book just like hops onto that train and rises to stardom just like on accident. Now, classic books, these are books that have, I don't know how old a book has to be a classic. Is it like Old Yeller, you got to be 20 years old and dead, or whatever. But these are books that, well, it's in the name. It's a classic work. It's old. It has been deemed good by many, many critics. It has survived over centuries, possibly millennia, if you are reading some of the old ones. And they are well regarded for a reason. There's a good reason why these classic books are classics. And now that doesn't mean that you're going to like every one of them. And you could not like any classics. You could find them boring. You could be blind, or you could be cross-eyed. Then you might not like them as much. You might not like books. But there's a reason classic books are classic books. And that's why I think it's better to read them. Now, you don't have to always read classics, but I think if you wanted to take a percentage and say, I'm going to read this many classics versus this many bestsellers, the percentage should skew towards the classic books. That's my opinion. Go weep in a corner if you don't like it. I'm not here to make friends in this video, so yeah. Question 5. Have you ever bragged about reading a classic in order to sound smart? Yes, of course. Bragged, I don't think is the right word. I'm not a braggart, I don't think. Outside of reading, I'm typically modest. At least when I'm not being ironic. I am often ironically immodest for the laughs. But in reading, I love talking about books, and I love trying to articulate my thoughts about books in a way that helps me understand things. So that means that I try to talk about books as much as I can, and that involves saying that I've read things and talking about those things, or trying to sound like I know what I am talking about sometimes. And is that false? Is it false? I don't think it's false. It comes from a point of excitability, and sometimes you want to feel included in conversation or something. You might fudge the numbers a little bit. Now, I don't think this is a reason to say that, I'm going to make a video about this book that I didn't really understand. I'm going to pretend like I loved it. No. Shouldn't be a total faker. But sometimes you get caught up. You're excited, you're talking about books, you're like, hey. And then you start like spewing things out of your mouth, and maybe you get caught up. Whatever. If you get caught up, admit that you're caught up. You're like, I actually don't know what I'm talking about. Whatever. I hardly ever know what I'm talking about, but I try to say things, and they come out of the mouth. Yeah. I'm sorry, that was a poor answer to question 5. But it's getting darker, so we're keeping on. Question 6. Do audiobooks count as reading? What about comic books or graphic novels? Audiobooks. I have a lot to say about audiobooks, and I'm not going to say them all on this question because that would take up 5 to 50 minutes. Do I think audiobooks are reading? No. By definition, I think they are listening. They're reading to me, reading means looking with eyeballs to words on a page. Audiobook, different. You're still consuming the novel, but you are going through the ears. Have I listened to audiobooks this year? Yeah, I've listened to a few. I'm trying not to now because I'm not a great audio listener, and I can't comprehend as well on audio. So, no, I do not think audiobooks count as reading, but I have no problem with somebody who has listened to an audiobook logging said audiobook as something they have read this year. Who cares? The words went into your brain somehow. You didn't read it, but yeah, why wouldn't it count? I don't know. What about comic books or graphic novels? Yeah, I love graphic novels. I haven't read any recently, but I freaking love V for Vendetta by Alan Moore. That is one of the most fantastic works I've ever read. Yeah, that's reading. You're looking at the book. Sure, there's pictures, but like Alice in Wonderland has illustrations, like the ones by John Tenniel. Is that not reading when you look at a picture on the page? Who cares? It's got words. Am I gonna say a comic book is a book? No, a book is mostly words. Now Watchmen, there's a lot of words in Watchmen. That could be a book, but that's a different story. So eyeballs reading, earballs listening. They're different, but who cares? 7. Have you ever looked down at someone for reading a popular fluff book? Parentheses, a book with little substance to it? For example, a self-help book or celebrity memoir. Of course I've looked down on people for that. It's a gut reaction. I am disgusted by some of the things that I see people reading. And then I take a step back and I'm like, oh, they are choosing to do that for whatever reason. And I don't know the reason. And it's not really my position to judge that reason. But yeah, there's that visceral heat of the moment. Like, I see something and I don't like it. And I'll look down. I'll admit it. I will do that. But who am I to talk? I only started I call it my return to reading journey it really got into the flow in 2022. So it's been a little over 3 years since I restarted my reading process. And when I restarted, I was reading some self-help, and the rest was either a little bit of science fiction or a lot bit of fantasy. I was just chewing through fantasy novels in 2022. And that's probably that was the highest page count in a year that I've had so far, because it was all fiction, and it was all pretty easy fiction to read. So since then, my tastes have been evolving very steadily. I'm currently on a huge nonfiction kick, and I'm reading books that I deem to be tougher than when I first started my reading journey. But that doesn't make me a higher quality reader for having my goalposts expand into more learning and trying to get deeper into works. That's just a different type of reading, I think. It's not that... Well, I will say this. Being modest, I'm sure that I am a better reader than 99% of the world or more. And by better, that could be either quantity of books read or like how well I read when I sit down and read. I can sit down and I can read for hours just sitting there. A few breaks, but I set out time and I go there and I read. And I read for a long time. And because of that, I'm not the fastest reader, but I'm a medium speed reader, I think. Because of that, I read a lot. I read a lot of pages just because of how much time I dedicate. And that adds up to however so many books every year, 70 to 100 something every year, consistent. I know that makes me a better reader than most people because most people don't even pick up a book. And it's just a fact. I don't know the stats, but I know it's a fact. I talk to people. I don't talk to everybody. I'm kind of a recluse, but I talk to some people. And I know that other people have said that nobody picks up books. I've seen it in the news, and I've seen it on BookTube. So just because I see someone reading a book that I don't really like, I think it's good that they're reading. I think that's great. And sure, yeah, I've got that snob instinct, but it's good that they're reading. And I was just at the pool this afternoon, and there were a bunch of people laying out it wasn't even sunny out. There's a bunch of people laying out on the reclining chairs, and we were all reading. And it was good. It was great. So, yeah, I try not to look down on people after I've had my bit of rage or whatever. I try to calm down and remember that I used to read only for fun, whatever, fluff, popcorn books. So I remember my roots. And yeah. Jeez, that took a while. Have you ever been the recipient of somebody else's snobbery? All the time. I am always the recipient of snobbery, and it's indirect and it's not purposeful. But if somebody on BookTube talks about a book that I haven't read, I consider that a personal insult. And I am a victim of their snobbery because they have read a book that I have not read, and that infuriates me. I feel like they're being pedantic and talking down to me. Not actually, but I'm like, shite. I want to read that book right now, and I want to know what is in that book. Actually being a victim of direct snobbery, I don't think so. I didn't really have that university experience where I was in a academic circle where I could have been the victim of snobbery. I was out there not really reading books, not really talking to people about books at university. So I feel like that's a good place to get snobbed upon, either by some graduate professor or your classmates or whatever. Being a booktuber, have I been the victim of snobbery? I've been the victim of, I don't even call them rude comments because I don't consider them to be rude, but like comments coming at me. There's been a few. It wasn't really snobbery. It was just like, this sucks or whatever. But no, I think I've been pretty lucky in not being the victim of snobbery. But now I don't think I would be hurt by somebody's snobbery because I'm more secure in my reading views. I know how it works. I know all the genres. I am aware of quite a good deal of books. Now, definitely some philosophy people, some philosophy experts could get me, and I'm still working on argument and debate, so it's a losing battle for me too. But I feel like I'm getting more armed in my defense against snobbery. So if you're gonna come at me, come at me. Question 9. Would you ever be friends with a snob? Maybe you already are. Yeah, of course I would be friends with a snob. I need somebody to keep me honest. I need somebody to not be like. Somebody to remind me that I shouldn't be a snob. But I bet there are some great snobs out there that are just a delight to talk to about books. Now, if they were a snob about my reading, no, I would not want to be friends with them. If we had some inside jokes about some genres or whatever, as long as we're not bullying people to their faces, come on, let's have some fun here. We're all here to have fun. We can have some inside jokes. It's fine. I think it would be top fun to be giggling with another snob. Am I a snob? TBD. There's one more question. But yeah, I would be friends with the snob. Maybe I am. Hardly any of my friends read. That's not true. Actually, a decent amount of them read. I think maybe by me getting them into reading or reading more, but I don't think any of them are snobs. So one day I will find my snob mate. Question 10. Are people who don't read less sophisticated than people who do? Not necessarily, but probably. I think probably yes. Now, what is sophistication? I don't know. Being sophisticated, to be classy, to be on a higher level of intellectual understanding, perhaps. I should have prepared for this question. To be a sophist? You don't want to be a sophist. At least if you don't want to kill Socrates. But sure, I would bet that people who don't read are less sophisticated than people who do read. Now, that's not a law, that's not a rule. You can have great levels of sophistication, I think, without reading. There's so many other different types of art. Does sophistication require art? I think so. Because I think the intellect is artful, and the creative mind is what spurs sophistication. So you can show sophistication through writing. You don't have to read to write. I don't know how you would do that, though. Writing, cinema, physical arts, oration, architecture. I think there's a lot of different ways. Fashion. You can be sophisticated in fashion. It's just, I think it's quite hard to become sophisticated without reading widely, or at least reading enough to know things. Now, like you see on TV shows, news television shows, where there's interviewees, not the hosts, but the people who are being interviewed. They always pop on screen on the boxes. And what does every single one of these people have in the background of their camera screen? It's a bookshelf. They want to show off that they're a reader, so that people will respect them on the news. I see the news at work all the time. I think on Fox and CNN. Like at least 95% of the speakers who join the newscast have bookshelves in the background. And I think that's because they want to show an air of sophistication. Plus, they are just people that have these books. Do they read them? I don't know. I always try to like judge those bookshelves when I can, but it's usually hard to see the exact titles. But I think people who don't read are less sophisticated on average. I don't have a stat. Let's say they're 30% of the sophistication of a reader. How about that's cut that from the broadcast. I don't like that stat. But yeah, question 11, measure yourself based on your answers to the previous 10 questions. Would you qualify as a book snob? Based on what I've been saying, which I did not plan to say, I would put myself in a quasi-snob state. Outwardly, I don't, other than to some of my friends, I don't particularly act with snobbery. I'm not a jerk to people who read. I think reading is good. Inwardly, as I mentioned, the gut reactions where I'm like, that book sucks. Like, why are you reading that? Why are you reading that genre? You should be reading what I'm reading because what I'm reading is really good. I get that all the time, and I try to avoid it, but there's like sometimes you get a certain smugness and it feels good, and it's just part of being human. But I really try to avoid that. I try to be deliberate about not being a jerk, a snob. So, yeah, quasi para snob. That's it. A QPS, quasi para snob. So yeah, I could be considered a budding snob if I let my mental blocks go down a little bit and I start just hitting people with vitriol or something. I could be there. There's like he could snap at any moment, but I am not gonna snap. We're gonna hold the levees, and we're going to not make fun of people for reading, and we're going to not look down upon them for reading, unless they're reading Dungeon Crawler Carl.